to our celebrations today. And as we now seek the guidance and advice of our distinguished guest of honor, our Honorable Minister of State for Corporate Affairs, I request Shri Rao Inderjit Singh ji for his address.
Honorable colleague and Senior Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Secretary Corporate Affairs, Shri Rajesh Verma ji, officers of the Corporate Affairs Ministry and other ministries, regulatory bodies, professional institutions, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Rajesh Verma has just given a lowdown on the ministry as a whole and its regulatory bodies and the functions that they have undertaken over the last few years. With the permission of the chair, I would like to digress a little. We are celebrating the 75th year of our independence. In the lives of individuals, 75 years is a lifetime. Some may not even make it. And the fortunate few who do are on the decline. Whereas when you compare an individual's life with the life of a nation, 75 years is of little significance, especially for a country like ours. Long history, long tradition, respect globally over hundreds and hundreds of years. And they say history repeats itself. And if history was to repeat itself, can we, in the coming years, recapture what glory we once had? Let us say at the beginning of the Indus Valley civilization, 2000 years plus. India was a great nation. India continued to be a great nation for the following 1500 years. And if world economists, either from the World Bank or from universities across the globe, were to be believed, there was a time when India constituted 1/4 to 1/3 of the global economy. Till the 1500s. In the 1600s, when Aurangzeb was in India's Delhi throne, the yearly taxes into this gentleman's coffers was 100 million pounds. A sum which the so-called British Empire, on which the sun never set, could not achieve even 200 years afterwards, till the 18th century. And what happened in the 18th century? They found a foothold in India. And a small island nation exploited the resources of this vast country, which had all the natural phenomena that one would require for development. We had the Himalayas, which acted as a barrier, we had rainfall, we had agriculture, we had peace. And because of that, India not only survived, proliferated, and became a world economic power. Now, like I was saying earlier, 100 years in a nation's life is a very small amount of years. But because of technology, 100 years, say in 2022, cannot be compared with the 100 years in 1000 BC. Development is now going on at a geometrical space. And what we hope to achieve under the guidance of a Prime Minister and of course the Finance Minister under Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman and all the able officers represented here is to multiply that geometrical progression further, leapfrog those development years. We missed the Industrial Revolution, but can we leapfrog that Industrial Revolution and find our rightful place in the Committee of Nations in the next 25 years? The possibility is there. The statistics are there. The question is, are we willing to put our shoulder to the plow? For the next 25 years, can we dream and can we fulfill that dream is what the 75th year of our independence celebrations is all about. As capsulized today by this iconic week with the Government of India, not only the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, but all Government of India ministries and departments are celebrating. And just to buttress my point, I would like to put forth a few statistics. In the year 1340, when Prime Minister Narendra Bhai Modi became the Prime Minister, India growth was at 6.4%. In the year 21-22, as the latest report says, our growth, the growth of our GDP is 8.7%. The intervening 2 years, 3 years of COVID, in spite of that, we have reached a target of 8.7%, which was before we took over the reins of power in India. And when we compare ourselves with the rest of the world, who also undertook this arduous journey of fighting COVID, how have they performed and how have we performed? If we take a balance, then we realize that we are a little ahead of the rest of the world, including developing countries, except China. Well, I will not mention China because they have been able to control their population. Somehow, we still have not been able to address the population issue in the way that it should have been addressed. In the beginning of the 15th century, China was a few percentage points behind us. Today, it's a few, it's leapfrogged many percentage points ahead of us. And my personal view, of course, is that it is attributable to the large population that has come about over the last 50 years. But getting back to what I was talking about, India today is developing at 8.7%. This is the projection. By 2030, it will have progressed at 14.3. By 2040, it will have progressed at 20.8% annually. USA, in 13-14 financial year, had a growth rate of only 1.8%. In 2021, it has a growth rate of 5.7%. In another 5-6 years from now, in 2030, it will have a growth percentage of 15.3%. And in 2040, it will have a growth percentage of 13.9%, which is about 6 percentage points less than India's. As things stand, the world's biggest economic power is going to the way the British Empire went, down the slide, down the chute. And India, hopefully, if we can live up to these expectations and projections, we will be at the top of the ladder. Germany, a country which has faced 2 world wars and has still built itself up. At the beginning of 2013-14, it had a growth in its economy of only 0.5%. In 21-22, they managed to achieve 7.4%. But by 2030, they will decline to 2.8%, and by 2040, they will decline even further to 2.3% of the GDP. Heartening news for Indians. Can we, now that we are on the upswing, can we maintain that momentum? And the countries that we looked up to, and I specifically wish to speak about the 500 years of British rule. No, not sorry, the 200 years of British rule. When the British left this country, Indian economy was growing at only 3%. When British arrived in this country in 1800, they were given on a platter a country whose GDP per annum was 24% as compared with the world economy. 24% of the world's economy was Indian. In 200 years, they exploited us to such an extent it came down to 3%. So, here's the challenge. The world is declining, the world economies are declining, except for China, who was our neighbor and maybe our antagonistic neighbor. Can we live with this reality of fighting China economically? Can we live with this expectation that the world economists have vis-a-vis India? Can we live to the expectation of the youth of our country? And can we live up to our history of 2000 years? This is what the challenge is all about. This is what 75 years of celebration is all about. This is what technology-driven enterprises can achieve only if we were to put a mind and hearts to it. So I thank you all for having joined us today at this iconic week. And I hope that you and I together, the Government of India, Mr. Modi's guidance, and all our joint efforts will project India into the space and into the sphere that it really deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, sir, for inspiring and motivating.